Today we are kicking off, like Nick said, our series called As I, and this whole series is all about how Jesus lived his life and how he loved people on this earth. And so as I, it's like as he did things, we need to like copy him and things like that. So that's just a short intro to the series. But today we're doing As I Humiliate Myself. And so when I thought of that, I was like trying to rack my brain, trying to figure out like different embarrassing stories I could tell, and I was like, what is just so cringy to me? And I came up with the thing that has happened to me sometimes, and some people in this room I think have done it to me, and that's fine. I'm not calling you out. It's just, it's happened, and I've thought, ooh, this is cringy, okay? So I have people every once in a while, when we become friends on Facebook, they tell me, hey, I went all the way back to your wedding on Facebook to see the pictures, and stuff, which is fine. I do the same thing. I just don't always admit it. You know, I appreciate the honesty. And so what I sometimes wonder, though, is if they're lying to me and they went further back, but they're like too embarrassed to say it. Like they're like, oh, I went to your wedding, but like before that, like, why do you still have those photos up? Why do you still have those Facebook statuses up? You know, some of this stuff is pretty cringy. So I thought, you know, how can I humiliate myself today? Well, I can put some of these beautiful statuses up on the screen for you, and you can just enjoy. Because I was a writer, I was a creative back in when I was a junior, senior in high school. And so Alex, if you could put the first one up there. This one is just hating awkward moments, JK, 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 ha 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 ha. Now the important part about this one is the date is December 15th, 2008. And it's some trivia. Anybody know what happened on December 18th? Okay, you guys, that's when Nick and I started dating. Come on. Not married. No, that was a couple of years later. Still a teenager though. December 18th was the day that Nick and I started dating, so 3 days before that I was feeling awkward, and it was probably because Nick and I hung out, probably. This one is feeling random, and then I just would do gibberish. Like, I don't know if anybody else did that, but just like, ah! And you can tell, guys, you can see the like count, and you can see the comments, okay? I did not hide that from you. That's the interaction on that post. That was 8 days before Nick and I started dating, so I don't know what we were thinking there. Next one, Alex. This one, so it goes in reverse order, is going to my grandma's and then is at my grandparents'. I needed to update the world. No likes on that whatsoever. Next one. Oh, this was a good day. This was, I don't regret this at all. Like, super excited for High School Musical 3, and then like 20 exclamation points. Midnight showing, you guys. Midnight show. Oh, I was so excited. So excited. Okay, next one is, oh, this. So I think at this point, I don't know if at this point you could take away the is or not, because, you know, on Facebook, they used to have the is all the time. So, like, this was like, I was deep in my feelings. This was a bad day. This was 4 days before Nick and I started dating, so I don't know what you did, Nikki, but something happened here.
I fixed it.
Yeah.
You
But just is. Beautiful. It is pre-Nikki. And then the next one, Alex. Oh, that was a really bad day.
That's what I did to you. That's good.
That was October 27th, so that might have, no, that was October 27th. This is bad. This is just like,
Oh, that's pretty.
yeah, this is really bad. So the other thing I would do in this time period is you would upload like 60 photos to Facebook. Not like, you know, the 1 or 2 that you do today. At least this is what I did. I would just take pictures like crazy, not edit them at all, and just put them on Facebook. It was great, and my friends loved it. I was like the photographer of the group. I had my pink digital camera. So sometimes what me and my friends would do is we would like model. So we'd like go out in the yard and like lean up against the tree, and it was really cool, guys. So the one that I really liked that I found, you can put that one up, Alex, is just this one on the left. That's me modeling, just laying down. You know, because that's it. And then that's me in the bathroom at my high school, because we would hang out in there. For guys who don't know, there's always a cool space in the girls' bathroom, and so we would hang out. And that purse right there is a Troy Bolton purse, probably meant for like a 5-year-old, but I had it in high school. So, big High School Musical fan. And then the next one, Alex, if you want to put that one up, this is a beautiful picture that I also found of my dog Titus, and I would dress him up. This was junior year of high school. I decided to post this. Well, that's more socially acceptable because it's actual outfits for dogs. That is true, though. I still take pictures of my dog dressed up, so not much has changed. And then finally, I found this photo. And this photo reminded me of another story that has to do with the story with Jesus today. So this one happened in my senior year of high school. Junior year, I was a part of a youth group, and all the youth groups would like come together and do different events. So we would do like worship events, or we'd do different service events, and the youth pastors got together and like, oh, you know, it would be awesome if we did like an in-town missions trip, and we'd all get together, and every day we'd do worship, and we'd pump each other up, and then we'd go out and we'd serve, and we'd come back, and we'd like report back of what God did, and super awesome, all spring break, okay? And I was a good youth group kid, so of course I went to this event. Every day of spring break, we would pick up trash, we would scrape gum off the bottom of tables, we would serve the different nonprofits, all like the gross, dirty jobs that nobody else wanted to do. And at the end of the week, they said, oh, we're gonna do this again. And I thought, I am not doing this again. I don't know about you, but spring break is supposed to be relaxing, okay? So what I did, and I don't know to this day if my mother knows this, so Mom, if you're listening to the podcast, I'm sorry, but what I did is I thought, how can I get out of this? Well, I can't just say no. No. That would be crazy. I will come up with a trip. I got to get out of town. I got to get away because it's spring break. That is socially acceptable, to get away from this if I'm on a trip with my family. I can't do my whole family because they're off at college and everything. I can ask my mom if her and me can go on a girls' trip. And we decided to fly all the way out to California. So this was like thousands of miles away to get away from serving. I kept this secret for years. I didn't tell Nick until probably like we had been married for a couple of years or something, because I was so ashamed of myself. Because keep in mind, my mom, like, you know, you're in high school, you don't have the best relationship with your mom. So my mom was thrilled about this, you guys. And she would deliver Starbucks to me in bed every morning while my friends were back in Kenosha scraping gum off of tables. I was like loving life. Anyways, that's me in Hollywood. But unlike me, Jesus didn't run from the opportunity to get down and dirty. So thank God for that, because this was not the shiniest moment. But I don't regret it. I had a great time with my mom. It was fun. It was a memory, you know. It's fine. Anyways, so today we're going to be looking at John 13, 1 to 17. If you have your Bibles on your phone or something, you can turn there. But we're going to read through the passage and kind of explain it together. So this first one is the scene, is what I'm calling it. So before the Passover celebration, Jesus knew that his hour had come to leave this world and return to his Father. So something about this to keep in mind is the Passover meal, right? If you haven't heard of this, it's a huge celebration in the Jewish faith. And it was the moment that the Hebrews were freed from slavery from over 400 years. And so they would celebrate by sacrificing a lamb. And in this instance, Jesus is going to become the new lamb. So it's pointing towards that in the story. And something to keep in mind is at this Passover celebration, they were all sitting at a table that was like coffee table height. So not like a normal table that we would sit at, but coffee table. So they're like leaning up against each other even. And so Alex, you can put up that one slide that has that picture, just to kind of give you an image here. This is probably what it looked like in this U shape, and you're sitting really close to each other with your feet exposed, okay? Next part of the verse. He had loved his disciples during his ministry on earth, and now he loved them to the very end. So John, throughout his book, this is from John that he's writing this. He's the disciple that Jesus loved. That's how he refers to himself. And he wanted to make it very obvious that Jesus loved his disciples so much that he was going to die for them. Next verse. It was time for supper, and the devil had already prompted Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. This is key, because Judas was invited to this dinner that was happening, and what Jesus is about to do is wash the feet of everybody at the table. But Judas was sitting there, the guy who was going to betray him, the guy who was going to go and basically serve Jesus on a platter to these people who wanted to kill him. Judas is there, and John wanted us to know it. The next verse, Jesus knew that the Father had given him authority over everything and that he had come from God and would return to God. So John, again, is pointing something out to us. He's saying, Jesus had all the power, and so our next logical conclusion, if I was in this position in this time, I might be thinking, oh, I have all the power. Might as well take a knife and, I don't know, take care of Judas. If he's going to betray me, I don't know. It's Roman times. That happened all the time, right? I don't know. No? Too violent? Okay. Something else to keep in mind, in Luke chapter 22, in this same passage, he's talking as the disciples are coming into this. What are you saying?
I just didn't know that was in your mind.
I'm saying take care of him. He's going to attack. I don't know. Revolution. Whatever. Okay. Luke 22, they're coming into the same dinner in another book of the Bible, another gospel, and they are arguing about who is the greatest. That's what's going on in this thing, okay? So some people believe that Peter, he was probably seated like at the least position because of that, because he was thinking, oh, well, if Jesus might like promote me if I sit in like the least important spot. Which I know is kind of hard for us to understand today because we don't really have those important spots anymore. But like, imagine Peter is just sitting on like the beanbag in the corner or something. I don't know. And so just keep that in mind. Okay, next slide here, the washing, verses 4 to 5. So he got up from the table, took off his robe, wrapped a towel around his waist, and poured water into a basin. Then he began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with the towel he had around them. So again, this is hard, I think, for us to understand because we don't wash feet. When we got here today, we didn't all take off our socks and shoes and wash each other. We don't do that today. But this was a custom in that day. So I want to think of it in this way. I want you to imagine that you invited your boss and coworkers over for dinner. And some of the stuff I'm going to say today is kind of gross, but it goes along with the story, okay? So I'm just going to preface it. I want you to imagine you had Taco Bell the night before. And then you see your boss get up and go to your bathroom that you forgot to clean, okay? Just leave it to the imagination. Then you see your boss go out, find the toilet bowl cleaner, find the toilet brush, and go into your bathroom and start to clean your toilet. Just in silence. Nobody is saying anything. Just, this is happening. And you're like, I can't believe I forgot to, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. That's what's happening in this moment. Because when we look at what is going on is that they were walking around in sandals, and in that time, there wasn't great toilets. There's animals all over the place. And so that's what's on their feet. Is just poop. It's gross. But that's what's happening. And that's what Jesus decided to do, was wash that off. Another analogy, you can see my Uggs up here. I want you to imagine your boss cleaning your Uggs. 2008 reference right there. But mine aren't too gross, but they're kind of gross on the inside because they just get gross over time from sweat and all that stuff. So that's how grimy and disgusting it was. So Jesus took on the shameful uniform. He took off his outer garment. And so, like, imagine your boss wearing a suit coat, takes it off, and then he ties a towel around his waist, or he puts an apron on. Like, it's just so thrown off. You're like, this isn't what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be just sitting here enjoying the meal. Why are you cleaning? What is happening here? And then the shameful act is just like him. The peers would just very rarely wash the feet. And when you're looking at scripture and you notice, hey, foot washing, one thing good to do is to see where else this is in Scripture. So when Nick preached on trees back in Christmas time, and Sharina did too, trees are all throughout the Bible, and so it's good to like reference different things and see where are the themes. And so with foot washing, I did the same thing. I looked up foot washing in the Bible. And the only times that you see actual people doing it, not just offered to do it, is women. So Jesus is taking on the position not only of as a man servant, but he's taking it on the form of a female servant, which is unheard of. And so he's just constantly just messing up people's ideas of leadership and who should be doing what. We see this again with John the Baptist, when John the Baptist is told to baptize him, and he's so thrown off by it. He's like, no, I can't baptize you. You need to baptize me. But we see it that he's throwing people off all the time. And the different women that we see that did wash feet is Mary. She, in John 12, she poured a pint of pure nard, which was an expensive perfume, onto Jesus' feet. And then Abigail washed David's soldier's feet in the Old Testament. And then we also see the woman with the perfume, who is somebody else, who also washed Jesus' feet. So it's always women who is doing this, and then Jesus takes on the position of a woman. It's just fascinating to me. Then we see the argument. So when Jesus came to Simon Peter, Peter said to him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? Peter's like, no way. So again, can we see that layout, Alex? The next slide. So yeah, Peter was sitting last. So you see Jesus is sitting over on the left there. Judas is actually in the seat of honor. And then John. So we don't know who chose these seats. But can you imagine being Judas in the seat of honor here, which is crazy. Then we see John, who's in like the second place of honor. And then all the way at the end, Peter's sitting there. And so again, what I said before about Peter wanting to possibly either put into like Jesus's teaching about being the least is the greatest, like maybe he was trying to do that, or maybe he was thinking, oh, I'm probably going to get promoted if I sit in the least spot. But we also know that the person in the least spot was the person who was most likely supposed to wash the feet. So Jesus goes around to everybody else, and then he gets to Peter. So nobody else says anything. They're all silent. This is all the awkward moment, as far as we know anyways. And then Peter steps in here and says, are you going to wash my feet? Jesus replied, you don't understand now what I am doing, but someday you will. He's saying, you don't know the cross is coming. You don't know you don't know I'm going to rise from the dead. But someday you will. Then Peter protested and said, no, you will never wash my feet. Never, ever. I like that. Never have I ever, that thing. Peter's very stubborn. He's very stubborn here. Jesus replied, unless I wash your feet, you won't belong to me. Simon Peter exclaimed, then wash my hands and my head as well, Lord, not just my feet. Peter just makes like this compulsive flip. He's like, okay, do whatever you want. Jesus replied, a person who has bathed all over does not need to wash except for the feet to be entirely clean. And you, disciples, are clean, but not all of you. For Jesus knew who would betray him, and that is what he meant when he said, not all of you are clean. So he's saying, just in case you forgot, Jesus is now pointing it out. Judas is in the room. Then we get to the teaching. After washing their feet, he put on his robe again and sat down and asked, do you understand what I was doing? You call me teacher and Lord, and you're right, because that's what I am. He's pointing out, you call me teacher and Lord. But in those days, when it's called Lord, it's not just like it was a term of like respect, like sir. But he's saying, no, that's who I am. He's pointing it out. That's actually, I am Lord of Lords. And since I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash each other's feet. I have given you an example to follow. Do as I have done to you. Now this is part, sometimes some different churches and stuff will take this very literally and say, oh, foot washing, that needs to be like a sacrament. Just like communion or baptism, we need to be going around washing each other's feet. I don't see it as that. I don't see anything wrong with washing feet. But I see it as more of an example to follow. How does this look in today's day and age to wash each other's feet? What does that look like? What's the example that we can follow here? And then he says, I tell you the truth. Slaves are not greater than their master, nor is the messenger more important than the one who sends the message. Now that you know these things, God will bless you if you do them. And so, I mean, that's a pretty cool thing that if we realize, okay, how do we wash each other's feet? If we do wash each other's feet, that's one way that we can get blessed. I don't know about you, but I'd love to get blessed more often. So a promise is always good in Scripture, right? So to summarize this, just the imagery throughout this, what I really like about this story is it's like a living parable, because Jesus always spoke in parables, right? He would do stories like the Good Samaritan, or he would do like the woman and the coin, all these different stories that were just, they weren't real, they were just stories he had made up. But then in this instance, he's a living parable, and there's different imagery to be drawn out here. So Enduring Word Commentary has this really great thing that I just wanted to read to point out the imagery throughout it. So Jesus rose from supper, a place of rest and comfort. Jesus rose from his throne in heaven, a place of rest and comfort. Jesus laid aside his garments, taking off his covering. Jesus laid aside his glory, taking off his heavenly covering when he came down here. Jesus took a towel and wrapped it around himself, being ready to work. Jesus took on a form of a servant when he came down to this earth and came ready to work. Jesus poured water into a basin and was ready to clean. Jesus poured out his blood to cleanse us from the guilt and penalty of sin. Jesus sat down again after washing his feet, or their feet, and Jesus sat down at the right hand of God the Father after cleansing us. There's just so much back and forth imagery in this whole passage. So we see the imagery, but then we also see that he says, hey, I'm setting an example here. So how do we wash each other's feet today? How do we take this passage and put it into practice? And I think there's a few ways to know that you're humiliating yourself like Jesus when you do these things. You can put that up, Alex. You can see if it's really dirty. It's pretty funny. This morning I was running through this. I was literally preaching this at my neighbor's house. I'm cat sitting. And she's not paying me to do this or anything. We like do favors back and forth. And I looked over and I saw cat puke on the floor. And I thought to myself, she's coming back today. I'm going to be honest. Like, she's not going to know when that happened. And I'm preaching this to myself, practicing it. And then I thought, oh, shoot, this is it. This is what I'm talking about. This is the dirty job that I don't want to do. But it's the right thing to do. So I cleaned it up and everything. But it was just funny that it happened as I was like trying to think of different analogies or whatever. And I was like, oh, there it is. Cool. So what's that job in your life that's really dirty? What's that thing that you're like, oh, I hate doing that? Or at work, everybody hates doing it. Maybe it's like cleaning out the microwave at work. Like, it just stinks, nobody wants to do it. Or it's cleaning the dishes. Or maybe it's picking up trash outside. Maybe it is literal gum scraping of desks. I don't know what it is for you. Only you can answer that. But what's that dirty job that nobody wants to do? Another way is the job isn't respected. People at work are like, nobody really needs to do that. It's fine. Ugh, that job is just whatever. You don't get any credit for it. You serve people that you don't like. You serve your enemies. Who's that person at work that you just like, ugh? Or in your life, who's that enemy? I know it's a very dramatic word, but who's that person that's hard to love? You can know that you're humiliating yourself like Jesus when you serve them anyways. Or this last one, the job causes confusion instead of accolades. So just like the illustration I gave of the boss coming over and cleaning the toilet, what's that thing in your job, in your life, that would just cause confusion if you did it? People would be like, no, you're not supposed to do that. You're not, like, what would that be? And I think there is, like, it's so hard with this, right? Because I feel like we either are on one side or the other. We love to be extremes. We can either be like, I'm never doing anything that's outside of what I'm supposed to be doing, or you can be like, I'm doing everything, and then you get burnt out. So I got this from another pastor who also preached on this, and the question that he asks himself is, God, is this an assignment that I'm meant to meet? Is this an assignment that you placed in front of me that I should do? And just checking with yourself and being like, yeah, I can do that. I can handle that. I have the bandwidth to clean that up. I can take out the trash. I can pick up the stuff from the side of the road. I have the bandwidth. I can do this. This is what God has placed in front of me to do. So I just want to take a second right now and just think to ourselves, what is that for you? So maybe close your eyes. We'll take a few moments. What's that thing at work, at home, that's just dirty, that's just gross, that other people don't want to do, that you think, I think this might be it? You can open your eyes again. And maybe when you're thinking about it, maybe you can't think of anything. I know for me, I couldn't think of a lot of things until I saw the cat stuff on the floor. But I want you to start looking for opportunities. Because even today, after I did that, I was on a walk and I saw some trash and I thought, oh, that's not my yard. And I was like, oh shoot, there it is again. And then I was in the bathroom earlier and I saw some toilet paper on the front. I'm like, oh, that's gross. And then I was like, oh, there it is. Like, once you start looking for it, you can't, it's so funny. It just happened to me 3 times today. That's just the gross stuff that nobody really wants to do. But it's it makes the world better. And it's loving like Jesus. It's living like Jesus when we do those things. Another thing I want to keep in mind too is just as Jesus, as he's washing the feet, and it's a picture of something so much greater, we can use these jobs that God places in front of us as reminders of different things in our lives as well. So you can be cleaning the dishes and thinking, oh, God, this is how you wash away my sins. Or taking out the trash and you can think, oh, this is how you get rid of the junk in my life, God. Or serving your enemies and praying for them. There's different ways that these different tasks can remind us of what God is doing. So I just encourage you to look for the dirty tasks. Maybe take note of them. Maybe you don't do it every single time, but you can live like Jesus as you start to do those things more and more. So that's all I got, guys.